In this video, we're going to dive into how to pull data from Furnish Finder, a platform for finding furnished rentals, and use that data to analyze profitable medium-term rental deals. I'll be showing you step by step how to extract the data, break down metrics like rental rates, and how to evaluate our property to see if it makes sense as a medium-term rental. I'll even show you how to get all the data into a spreadsheet. Whether you're a first-time investor or you've been in the game for a while, this guide will give you actionable insights to help you close your next deal faster. If you want to see more of these types of tutorials, then be sure to hit the like button so I know to make more content like it. All right, let's get started. Here we're on Furnish Finder. This is a listing website where those who are looking for medium-term rentals, meaning that they stay in the property over 30 days, but typically less than a year, like a long-term rental, would come to be able to see what listings, what rooms are available. Furnish Finder is one of the main sites for this. You can enter in here the destination, and what they offer are listings for furnished apartments, homes, rooms, condos, and other midterm rentals. If you're brand new to what midterm rentals are, we'll quickly go over it. So they offer flexible housing situations. So think of it. Someone can't stay for an entire year, but they're also going to stay more than just a couple days, so a hotel wouldn't work. What this really caters to are business professionals, so maybe contract workers that are going to be, say, in St. Louis for 3 months, and they only need to be in a room or a property for that amount of time. Healthcare professionals like travel nurses, students, maybe for an internship, they're going to be in a different location and need temporary housing. So what's really awesome for investors is that we can satisfy these needs for these maybe unusual circumstances of needing to stay in a place for a short span of time and be able to capitalize where we make more of a return. So for Furnish Finder, here I'm looking at a sample city, which is Tampa, Florida, where I'm from. And Furnish Finder, say if you're a travel nurse, very easy for them to be able to come in here, filter on their budget, when they need the property, if they want a room or entire unit, and then be able to see what is available. But what's difficult for us as investors is that we don't actually know what we should be pricing the property at. Should we rent out the whole room? Should we rent out the whole house? How should we actually structure this and what can our return be like? So that's the purpose of what we're going to be going through, is how to get this data and then be able to analyze for a sample property if it actually would be a good medium-term rental. And if you're new to medium-term rental, think of it similar to short-term rentals like Airbnb. Airbnb has plenty of listings, but they don't actually offer as much information on investment metrics, which is why there's scrapers like Appify, where you can gather this data. And I've shown previous videos of how to do this as well. You can find it in my GitHub. There's also websites like Price Labs, as well as AirDNA, that provide stats on short-term rental data. But there really hasn't been as much when it comes to the medium-term rental space, which is why we're doing this video. And what we're going to get at the end of this is a spreadsheet to be able to put in a city like Tampa, Florida, get all of the information such as each of these listings, the rental price, who actually posted it, which could be useful if you're looking to market to these owners, and then really interesting amenities and attributes, because we don't want to be the only house available that doesn't have parking if all of the other similar rental comps do. So we're going to go through this in a moment. And how we're going to actually get this data is by using ScrapePeek. I've had previous videos of using ScrapePeek in order to get data from sites like Zillow as well as skip tracing. So they actually added a new scraper based on popular demand, which is the Furnish Finder scraper. So you could use the link below to be able to get free credits to use this scraper. Once you create your free account and you click for Scrapers Furnish Finder, you'll see it in your dashboard as I do here. And just as a preview, these are other scrapers available. Like I said, Zillow, scraping for individual contact information, and Furnish Finder as well. So once you click into Furnish Finder, you'll be met here with your scraper and some more information. So if you do not want to code at all, you can directly use this portion to be able to enter your city that you want to grab data for. and run it here. Now, because this is the tech channel as well, we're going to show how you could break this down by using programming as well, which becomes really relevant as you get more experience as an investor. You'll likely be dealing with softwares like Go High Level or Podio to be able to stream your leads. So you need to be able to work with APIs and documentation. Now, if all these terms are new for you, web scraping, APIs, as a quick overview, web scraping is copying information from the internet, and what we're doing is programmatically doing so. So instead of hand copying with our notes and a pencil and a paper, we're able to programmatically get elements from a website and structure it via an API. So here, if we go to API documentation, you will see your API key and a documentation for Furnish Finder. So a bit of a description of what this API does, what data it scrapes, and then most importantly, what are the endpoints? What can we actually extract? So we can get data about property details. We can also do basic searches. We can do listings, which we're going to focus on, search by coordinates, and more. So now let's go through an actual use case example, which is always my favorite. Here I'm on Zillow. It automatically sends me to Tampa, Florida, homes that I viewed recently in this area. So if we click on one of these, we'll be met with a property, 1912 E. Emma Street in Tampa, Florida. Let's look at this property a little bit further. It's been on the market for over 3 months, if we look down here, and it's 4 beds, 3 baths, 2,000 square feet, which is pretty awesome. So it seems like these bedrooms actually are fully sized, which is good if we were to try to rent it by the bedroom. We could look at some of these photos as well and see that it looks to be a recent flip. So turnkey, ready to go, don't need to do much work. So at this stage, if I was looking on a site like Zillow, I'd like to see rent just to quickly analyze, is this something that could be profitable or not? Now, if I search for rent here, we could see that there's actually no rent estimate for this property. And you'll see this typically for rural areas, as well as anywhere that doesn't have that many rental listings that Zillow can make a base judgment. So what do? How do we know if this deal can even work? So if we actually copy this address, we can plug it in for free on Coffee Closer's quick report, enter the address here, and then instantly get a report, which you get 5 free per month if you're a non-paying user. So here we could see the property. Most of the same information that we saw on Zillow. We have information on property images, about the property, but now even more detail. We could see that the seller has owned the property for only 3 years and doesn't have that much equity. So we likely can't do a strategy like seller financing without it being not a good deal for ourselves and the owner. We can look at more information about the area itself. But before we do, what we really care about here is rent. So we see here that the rent estimate is $2,500 to $2,600 about. We don't have a Zillow estimate here because there was none. These estimates are based off of comps as well as the median zip code rent. We can go down and we could see what those comps are. We could even look at these comps in further detail and see for these rental comps how far they are from the property. Now I'm going over this pretty quickly because I have shown in the past how to go over a deal in Quick Report, and our main focus isn't actually that today. Our main focus is to see if we have a property like this one that doesn't cash flow as a regular long-term rental. How do we know what it would cash flow as a medium-term rental? Because right now, at -5%, we'd be losing money every single month if we went with this deal at a traditional way. We could try to make a lowball offer, but I highly doubt that this individual who has not that much equity in their property would go, $100K below asking price. So this is where it becomes super important to be able to analyze other exit or hold strategies. So how else can we hold this property besides a traditional long-term rental for the tenant that stays for 12 months or more? Well, we know that it's not a fixer-upper, right? So fix and flip, don't work. If we were to house hack it, this deal could work, but maybe we don't even live near Tampa. We don't plan to. So house hack won't work as well. So now let's jump into how we would actually analyze the data using Scrape Peek to see if this deal would work as a medium-term rental. Now for the programming part, my favorite. So here we're looking at Google Colab. It's a free notebook environment provided by Google where you can code in Python without having it installed in your machine at all. And don't worry if you're not a techie, this is fine. You could literally still follow the same exact steps that I'm doing without having to add any additional code. So if you wanted to work with this notebook, you can go to File and save a copy in your drive. So now we know that Scrape Peek has information for Furnish Finder. We can scrape data. We've already signed up and now we have our API key. We're ready to go. So the first step here is to install packages. Next, we're going to install the packages that we'll need, as well run our functions, and I'll detail these functions as we go along. Now the first step here is entering our API key. So you should have your API key already and be able to paste it here. Now I want to get data that I saw previously from this website. So all I did was go to Furnish Finder, Tampa, Florida, and I basically want to copy all these listings, but we know by hand this would take an absurd amount of time, which is why we're using a programmatic way. So here I'm going to set my search query to Tampa, Florida, and my move date just to be today's date. You could set this for the future as well, but I'm going to keep it simple here. Now, if you refer to the documents for Scrape Peek, you'll be able to see example code to use. And I've already copied this code over for location search because remember, in this essence, I want to get all listings. There's other endpoints for photos, for property details, but right now it's all about listings. What this is doing here is I'm doing a request to get data. So I'm getting data from this endpoint. I'm sending my parameters and I'm going to get a response. Once we have our response, we could see all of the data that returns. This is very messy to look at. So let's try to understand our response a little bit more. So our response, let's put this into a JSON object and look at what keys we have. So we have information on whether this request was successful, which we could see that it was. A lot of data comes back. The data, message, and info. What is info? So if we press play here, so we're able to take our JSON object and ask just to get the key info, which we got from over here. And info basically tells us how many credits we've used and how many credits remain. Now I have a lot of credits because I'm creating these videos. You will likely have about 100 to 1,000 credits to start off with for free. So be mindful to decide back up here what you want your search query to do when you first run this, so that you utilize your free credits as good as possible. Now, if we look here, how many listings we have about 2,300 listings. Awesome. But as we said, it's not easy to look at this in this really strange string, right? We want to bring this into a table format because ultimately we want to see this in a spreadsheet. Take the response object, we just want the data, so all of the listings, and I'm going to run this as I explained to you these other columns I added. So here we could see we have 51 columns, about 2,300 listings, and we have a lot of information. We get information on latitude, longitude, images, as well as links for these different properties and listings. We have the price, bedroom count, amenities, and more. So I added these towards the end. I added unique ID because some of these properties have, say, 4 bedrooms, but we really want to get the unique object. So I have the unique ID here, title, description, and rental price. How do we actually start to analyze these listings? So what we're going to do to look at the characteristics is by city. We want to see how many actual listings are there. So if I run this, we're using Plotly. And even though I put Tampa, a lot of other submarkets come through as well. So of all the listings, about 644 are of Tampa, the city, which for our property, it's here on the map, which is directly in Tampa. So we only want to look at Tampa, which will filter on in a moment. Afterwards, the other large markets like St. Pete, Clearwater are also here. So we can actually group to understand a little bit more of the context behind what listings are in each city. So if I run this, we are grouping by state, city, property type, and bedroom count. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're looking at the total number of listings, which is this count value. We're looking at the median rental price, max rental price, and minimum rental price. So the way we would read this, say for row 4 here, Florida is the state, Apollo Beach is the city, property type is house. So of all the listings, there are 4 properties that are in Apollo Beach with 3-bedroom count. Of all of these, their median rental price is $3,800, with the maximum being $4,500 and minimum $3,000. Now, this is really useful information. We could say run this on a daily basis and get trends to see how the market is moving in terms of listings. But that's not going to be our main priority for this video. What we really care about is diving deeper to understand for that subject property what it could rent out for. So here I'm going to filter on Tampa, and I want to see, can I rent out by the bedroom? Can I rent each of the 4 bedrooms and make a decent profit? So I'm filtering on Tampa, bedroom count as 1. And if we look at property type room, we could see there's 166 listings with a median rental price as $1,200, max is $5,000, and minimum as $750. Now at this stage, you'll see a lot of investors that say, okay, median rental price $1,200. Let's pop that in as our estimate of median term rental per bedroom. But I actually caution you here because Tampa, as well as a lot of markets, are fairly large. So we want to make sure we're looking at comps, not all 166, but only those that are very similar to the house. So here, what we're going to do next is look for comparables. Put in an address and get the top properties back. So let's jump into that function so you can understand a little bit more of how this works. So we have here, by using geolocator, we can get for an address what the latitude and longitude are. This will allow us to then plug this into the next function, where we're going to look at the latitude and longitude of our subject property, and then we're passing in our data frame of all listings that we deem to be part of our scope. And we're basically going to look at the distance between each of these listings to our subject property, and then return the top either 10 or some other amount. So now I'm going to go down and actually apply this logic. So we have our address, and if I go back here, it's just me copying 1912, E. Emma Street, which we also saw here on Coffee Closers when we ran the investment analysis. So I'm going to run this here, and we will see we now have the latitude and the longitude. Now we want to filter on all listings just to the ones that could likely be comparables. The reason is that computing is expensive, so if you're going to run this across every single listing that may not even be relevant, you're simply just wasting a little bit of time. So here I'm going to filter on the city, which is Tampa, bedroom count 1, and I only want to look at rooms because I'm planning here to rent by the room. So now I have less listings than I did previously. These are all relevant to the property. And now I'm going to run that function that we talked about, find the nearest properties. I'm passing in my property latitude, longitude, the sub-listings that all are rent by the room, and I only want to look at the top 5. So the 5 that are most similar in terms of distance. So if I run this, as you see, the function completed very quickly. And now we have top 5 listings. But maybe at this point, looking at it at a table is a little bit hard. So I'm going to visualize it with Plotly down below. And if we go back to our maps, we could see this property is in between 2 highways, it looks like, and on the right-hand side of another, 275, 41, and 574. Why I'm looking at highways, that this usually is a clear distinction of different neighborhoods. And it looks like there's some sort of lake here and some sort of cemetery towards the bottom right-hand side. Now, if we look at this map, we could see that cemetery here. We could see that there are 3 listings that are all above this highway line. So likely these are probably the most similar to our subject property. We could dive into these further by looking at the listings themselves. So let's say if I want to choose one of these, I'm going to copy it and paste it. Property is pretty close to the one that we have in terms of distance. And if we actually look at it, it looks to be in similar type of shape. I would say even our property is a little bit nicer than this one for our subject property. So maybe we could even increase rents a little bit. Now I may be a bit concerned. Do I need to have cleaners on site? So if I go back to my table, I could see here that housekeeping isn't actually always applied for each of these. For our top 5 listings, housekeeping is only for one of them. So maybe I don't need housekeeping as a higher expense. Free parking, it looks like 4 out of the 5 listings all have free parking. So I would want to make sure that we have free parking. As well, we probably want to include Wi-Fi, utilities, and to be furnished because the other listings also have that as well. So that is the expectation. Now, if we look at just these 3, 1,200 rental price, 1,200, and 1,200. This is telling me that we likely can price the property at 1,200 per bedroom. So remember, we have 4 bedrooms. If we were to estimate that we can make an income of $1,200 per, and we run this, our potential income could be $4,800. If we go back to our property here and we put our income as $4,800, our cash flow has now not only gone positive, but it's 20%. This is huge. This is a significant difference in what we saw previously. So again, instead of losing out on about $400 a month, we have the potential to be able to make almost $2,000 a month just by changing our hold strategy. Now, of course, there's going to be implications here. We may not make all of that income, or our expenses may actually be higher, right? So maybe if we do have a cleaning service, our expenses would be higher, our vacancy may be higher, but overall the theme is the same. A property that did not work previously could work by changing our strategy from long-term rental to medium-term rental. And we could also export, if we press play on each of these, to be able to get that spreadsheet. So I did this specifically for my spreadsheet geeks. You can download this as you like. So overall, what we covered was using a web scraper to automate the process of gathering listings, deriving insights, and ultimately deciding what we could potentially rent the property for if we change our strategy to medium-term rental. Now, if you want to see this within Coffee Closers, where it's all automatic and you don't have to set any of the programming up or API keys, just let us know in the comments below if there's enough demand. We will build it instantaneously. And with that, thank you so much. Please like this video if you want to see more tutorials like it. Thanks.